Good evening, everybody. This is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Mad Mouth, along with Xavier McKnight, welcoming you to another edition of The Real and the Rare here on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. There are times we have to talk about issues like this, and one issue that I want to talk about is child abuse. And Xavier, anybody that listens to that song Concrete Angel by Martina McBride will find it's a very humbling song for sure. So take it away, Xavier.
Yes, indeed, Scott. It definitely is a humbling song, and it's always great to be on the air with you. And I would say our normal trademark tonight, but I'm not going to do that just simply because of the sensitivity of this subject and this song tonight. Very serious topic here. And here's one thing I'll say as well. It's humbling, and when you watch the video and you listen to the song, if you're someone whose emotions can easily be disturbed by child abuse and things of that nature, I'm going to recommend that you have a box of tissues nearby. Because I didn't get to that point with the song today, but I can see how someone would, because it's a very realistic song. And first off, before I go in depth about the song, let me just say this. Martina McBride is a magnificent music artist, and kudos and props to her for creating this song many years ago and, just helping shed light on this subject here about child abuse and everything wrong that goes on here, because this was a very realistic video. And for some reason, Scott, when you first told me about this before me going to watch this video, for some reason I had this image of this being in black and white and it being even more darker, like really being very graphic about it. This was very graphic anyway, but I thought that it was going to be so graphic to the point to where it's like you have some graphic things that you have to see that people have to put in black and white. So I'm relieved to see that it didn't go to that context, but that's where the relief stops right there, because the way the song opens up, there's this little girl, and you can just tell by the way that she's walking. She's scared, she's sad, she's afraid. There's something very awful that is going on in her life. And this is a 7-year-old girl in this video of Concrete Angel by Martina McBride. And I would recommend anyone to go watch this video on YouTube as well. There are other platforms for it, but in particular YouTube. If you really want to get the full basis of the song, all of the lyrics, and really have a chance to digest and dissect what this really is. There's a 7-year-old girl, and she's walking alone by herself. There are other kids nearby, but they're not her friends. And she's walking by. She has a lunch sack. She has something else in her other hand. It looks like a book almost. But what I'm paying attention to for the most part is how scared she looks while she's walking, and this look that's on her face that just tells me she's had a very awful night, or there's something very awful that's going on in her life, and no one is really paying attention to any of this. No one's paying attention to it. And, one of the other images for me, and I'm going to hand it off to you so that we have a back and forth conversation with this.
Sure.
Right before she enters the school, there is this visual of another little girl hugging her mom as her mom is dropping her off to school. And you just see this look of frowning and sadness and disappointment come across this 7-year-old little girl's face. You don't even have to hear her say these words, because she doesn't say anything throughout this song for anyone to hear. But you can just tell with that instant look on her face, there is this immediate thought that runs through her mind of, I really wish I had that in my life and I wasn't dealing with what I was dealing with. The floor is yours.
Right. Well, I've watched it more than 3 times, quite a bit more than 3 times. And to me, it brings the anger side of me to have to watch a young child that's 7 years old to go through something like that. Child abuse, to me, especially in this particular video, when she goes to school, they know there's a problem, and yet somehow, some way, individuals in this setting aren't going any further to try to get to the root of the issue, to take this child out of harm's way. Do you know what I mean? I mean,
Yes.
the visual evidence of the bruises are there. You talk about a poker face for a child that's being abused. Oh, it just blows me away. I mean, and one of the reasons why I wanted us to talk about this is a couple of weeks ago when you talked about suicide and other things, we talked about individuals hitting, fighting back, whether it's a parent or whatever, to defend themselves. That's why at times I don't have a problem with it, but in this little girl's case, she didn't have the strength to do it, and you talk about innocent, she definitely defines what that word is.
And Scott, I'm going to touch on that as well, too. I'm going to touch on my thoughts with what you said last week with that going forward, because I do have some things I'm going to say there. I'm going to continue with the critiquing throughout the song so far. And for me, this isn't even really a critique. This is more of me just summarizing this song and breaking it down for everyone who, whether they've listened to this song, watched the video, whether they have not. And once again, I would recommend that you go watch it. But like I said, if you're a person and your emotions can easily be disturbed, have a box of tissues nearby. It is that type of song. It is that type of video. So we proceed now throughout the song and the video. The little girl is entering the school. She's sitting in the classroom, and you just brought this up without actually bringing this up. You brought up the bruises, but the teacher is literally walking by in the class, and she's walking by at the girl's desk, and you see these notable bruises on her arm. And Martina McBride even points it out in the lyrics of the song as she's singing it and as the teacher is walking by the desk. She notices the bruises but doesn't ask. Yeah, I have a huge problem with that, because it's going to explain further as I continue to go through this song. And once I'm done going through this song in its entirety, I will give my thoughts on this. I'll give my thoughts on this issue in general. But, that's one of the issues right there that I definitely had with the song. Not the issue in particular that they showed that, just the image that, that's actually something that's realistic. That's something that actually happens on an everyday basis with teachers who have students who have notable scars and bruises, and they don't ask questions about it. They don't go and report these things to the administration, to the counselors, to the nurses, to the people in the schools, to let them know that, hey, there's something going on right here. We're not really sure what's going on here, but listen, this is not normal. This is not safe behavior. Like, we need to get to the bottom of what's going on. But in the video, the teacher does not ask. The teacher does not proceed to go to any of those school officials like I noted that some teachers would usually do. But we see these issues go ignored all the time. So we proceed now to go outside of the classroom, and this little girl meets this little boy. And, they start becoming friends through conversation. The conversation starts out with her having a frown on her face because she's going through some things in her life that are just absolutely unfair and she should not have to go through. But as their conversation goes on, and you can't hear any of their conversation, you just have to read the facial expressions. You see that he says something, and he's able to start bringing a smile to her face. And that was a beautiful part of the image to see there. Like, it's nice to see that she does have a friend and that it does feel like that she does have someone who she can talk to, not necessarily about these issues, but someone who she can just feel normal around anyway. Because none of the things that are going on with her throughout this video are normal. Well, I shouldn't say that they're not normal. They're normal, but they're very unfortunate. That's the way I'll word that. And before I go any further, I'll ask for your opinions on this as well.
Well, I mean, two young kids hitting it off well, yet he feels the pain, can't do anything there. It's good that she had a friend there, but unfortunately, she only had it for a few hours a day. It's like, let's get out of jail soon, so to speak. You know what I mean? That there is some good in the world, and it's just, I don't know. I mean, to me, it is hard to believe that, you have that kind of innocence walking in a classroom, and he wishes he could do something deep down inside to do, but I don't think he knows what he can do.
No, of course not. Not at that age, because he's not being exposed to that at home. And when you're a child and you're not being exposed to that type of behavior and you're not experiencing that, until you start learning about those things in school, at home, and most parents don't start teaching their children about that until they get to around the age of maybe 10 or 11, as they're getting ready to go into middle school. Because as elementary school kids, I mean, kids are supposed to be just innocent, enjoying going to school and enjoying learning and making new friends and just, feeling like they have a safe haven place to go with people who have guardianship over them for a temporary amount of time throughout the day until they go back home to their actual families.
Right.
Unfortunately for this little girl in the video, this is not the case.
Right.
So we now proceed. We're not even in the school anymore. We're now back at home, and the little girl's at home. And what we also see throughout this visual, same little boy who she was talking with, he appears to live right across the street from her.
Right.
And if he's not across the street, he's right next door. Because what you see now, you see the two of them talking and having conversations in the window. And they're both having a really good time. And they both have smiles on their faces. There's a little laugh that's shared there. That's quite a little beautiful moment.
Right.
But, something was said there in the middle. And it was a little moment of an oh type of moment, or a I wish type of moment. Not exactly sure how to interpret that the best way right now. But they go back to smiling for a little bit. And the door barges open in the little girl's bedroom. And it's her mother. And nothing has happened yet, but the little girl turns around quickly, and she immediately has this frantic look on her face. The little boy is also looking on. He looks somewhat frightened with this look on his face. Now the mother's yelling at the little girl. And the little girl, she calls the little girl over to her. She's yelling at her, but now she starts to touch her a little. She starts touching her, and she starts shaking her. Right. And the little boy, he's just sitting there watching, and he looks scared. And as you said, he doesn't really know what to do. He doesn't. And she starts shaking the little girl more. This is a 7-year-old girl.
Right.
And she's shaking the little girl throughout the video.
Right.
And now we proceed just a little more. Little boy is watching on, and the mother starts beating on this little girl. And you see the hands, you see the belt, you see whatever the object was that she had in her hand, or whether it was just her bare hand. You see it going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth throughout the shadow of the light on one of the walls in the little girl's bedroom. And the little boy is just watching on, and he just looks petrified.
Right. Well, yeah.
The floor is yours before I go any further.
Well, again, you don't see what the actual object is. You get a feel for what it is. I don't know whether it's a pan or whatever it is, but a child can only take so much physical abuse for so long that at some point or another, they feel it, and they feel it really bad. You know what I mean? And then you don't know whether or not at some point that child got hit in the head, and whether the screams can be heard enough. You know what I mean? And that's just unbelievable. And, what is the neighbor supposed to do? Tell his parents that all of a sudden you got a bad situation, even though they're both upstairs looking at each other, and then he knows that something bad is going to happen from bad to worse. Unreal, isn't it?
Right, because in some situations, the same treatment obviously more than likely wouldn't have happened to him, because he's portrayed to be in this video as the child that actually comes from the good family, per se, is what I'll describe that as.
Right.
But, we know, and it's not something that I see and hear a lot of now, but I believe I'm a part of that age group that may have been a little of that last era who would actually go upstairs in their bedroom